Hey guys, here to talk to you today about the Foster versus Board of Trustees of Butler Community College, also known as Butler County Community College, in El Dorado, Kansas. Some facts about the case. This came about because of a car crash that happened um, in Reno County, Kansas, which is where El Dorado is located. Um, and Christopher Foster was a passenger in the car driven by George Johnson. While driving, Johnson had failed to stop at a stop sign and ultimately ended up crashing into a tractor trailer driven by another plaintiff by the last name of Clark. It did not give his first name, I believe. Johnson ended up passing away from the injuries he sustained during the collision that happened. Um, Now, Mr. Foster was on a recruiting visit at Butler Community College at the time uh, for basketball there at Butler. Upon arriving in Kansas, he was visiting from Ohio, and upon arriving, Johnson took Foster to Hutchinson, Kansas, which is about 30 minutes away from Wichita, where he had flown into. Um, and he was going to take him to watch the National Junior College Athletic Association, the NJCAA, National Basketball Tournament there at Hutchinson Community College. This is when the head coach, Smithson, called Johnson, telling him to bring Foster to El Dorado, to the campus of Butler. Johnson was on his way to Butler, or El Dorado, when the accident happened. Now, some arguments for both sides. The defendants presented many issues along with this for their arguments. One was they said that the evidence is contrary. The amount of damages awarded is so excessive as to have been based on uh, passion and prejudice. The court improperly allowed the jury to consider testimony regarding Johnson's lack of liability insurance to drive the vehicle and to operate it. And the court also improperly refused to submit the jury questions of whether Johnson was the employee of Butler Community College and whether Johnson was operating within his scope of his employment. They also, what was it? They also refused to allow testimony concerning the plaintiff's Clark's opinion, who was the other driver of the tractor trailer, whether or not the intersection was a dangerous intersection or not. The plaintiffs, on the other hand, they presented many other issues and evidence on their behalf that the Butler Community College defendants were negligent in selecting Johnson as the driver and as a gracious employee, as they called it. Johnson, they felt, was unfit to drive a school vehicle, much less with a recruit in it. But also, he was not driving. I believe he was driving his own vehicle at the time. Johnson also, another major issue in this case was Johnson also lacked a driver's license, insurance, and his vehicle was not registered. So that should have just been big red flags right there that nobody really kind of caught on to. In the end, the court directed a verdict in favor of the plaintiffs, saying that the awards that were given out were plenty and sufficient because of the evidence presented from the plaintiffs. And they ruled that Johnson was a servant or employee of Butler Community College defendants and was acting within the scope of his authority. His authority being the head coach telling him to bring Foster to the campus. The court also found the other plaintiff, Clark, 10% at fault, and the defendants, Butler Community College, 90% at fault. Also, the court found the awards, again, they were sufficient enough because of the evidence that had been provided, and the lack of liability and insurance that Butler Community College provided. Um, for me, as an athletic director, I think this is a big issue because you always get guys, if you have local kids, especially at the college level, you have local kids saying, "Hey, I'm going to drive to this game. I'm going to go home after. My parents will be there." Blah blah blah. We've actually had some issues like this on our baseball team last year, where kids would be like, "Hey, coach, can I go? I live 20 minutes away from where we're playing, and the only way we could do it is, hey, you can leave with your parents after the game. You just can't drive yourself." And if they really wanted to drive themselves, if it was approved, if it was before like a break, like a spring break or like a 3-day weekend, um, we would have to get permission from our athletic director, um, and it would be in writing, his signature, the parent's signature, the athlete's signature, and the coach's signature. So it's a pretty long process, but I believe it is something that needs to happen because then in situations like this, the school's back is covered, where, as in this particular situation, they had an individual, Mr. Johnson, operating a vehicle, whether it was his own or even the school's. Um, they they had to, recover their tracks, so to speak, because of the fact that he was lacking the driver's license, insurance, and his car wasn't registered. Um, so to avoid a situation like this, I would make sure that all the coaches understand the rules and guidelines when it comes to our transportation policies.